Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. August Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to this morning's Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Verse 18, and the chapter is entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. We're very happy to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu with us. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Vanchakar Pradibhyascha, Kripasindavevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.
Namo Namaha.
And it's all yours, Prabhu.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
And devotees are welcome to unmute if they can. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana.
Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana.
Jamunatira Vanachari.
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Jamunatira Vanachari.
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha गिरिवरधारी
गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी
यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन
यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन
यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन
यशोदनंदन व्रज जनरंजन
यमुनतीरावनचारी
यमुनातीरा वनचारी
यमुनतीरावनचारी
यमुनातीरा वनचारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
जय
निष्काम फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय।
जय
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय।
जय
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय।
जय
वृंदावन धाम की जय।
जय
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय।
जय
गंगा माई की जय।
जय
यमुना माई की जय।
जय
तुलसी देवी की जय।
जय
भक्ति देवी की जय।
जय
समवेता भक्तवृंद की जय।
जय
गौर प्रेम आनंदे।
हरि हरि बोल
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्णा
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्णा
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे कृष्णा
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari
भक्त
Bol.
श्री श्री गुरु श्री गुरंग
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Picharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 9th chapter, 18th verse. tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg yat pāramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg yat pāramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg yat pāramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. Please chant.
tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg yat paramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg paramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. Hare Krishna.
Varsha, do you want to start chant? Do you want to try chant that? I put up for you.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yeah. tad-darśanāhlāda-pariplutāntaro hṛṣyat-tanuḥ prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ nanāma pādāmbujam asya viśva-sṛg paramahaṁsyena pathādhigamyate. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Synonyms. Tat, by that audience of the Lord. Darshana, audience. Ahlada, joy. Do you know anywhere else where ahlada, that word comes in? That it's one of the things that we sing sometimes.
Prahlad.
How does it go?
Prahlad, right, Mahaprabhu?
Prahalad, ahlad, adayane, yeah. So in the Nrishinga prayers, Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlad.
Prahlad halad. Yes.
Dayane means gives, and Prahlad ahlad, gives joy to Prahlad. Prahlad ahlad dayane. Yeah. Paripluta, overwhelmed. Paripluta, overwhelmed. Antara, within his heart, within the heart. hṛṣyat, full in ecstasy. Tanuḥ, body. Prema-bharāśru, in full transcendental love. Ashru, tears. Lochana, in the eyes. Nanāma, bowed down. Pādāmbujam, under the lotus feet. Asya, of the Lord. Visva-sṛg, the creator of the universe. Yat, which. Paramahaṁsyena, by the great liberated soul. Patā, the path. Adhigamyate, is followed. Translation. Lord Brahmā, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart, and thus in full transcendental love and ecstasy, his eyes filled with tears of love, he thus bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being, paramahaṁsa. Let's repeat. This is such a nice verse. Let's repeat. I'll say you repeat, okay?
Yes,
Lord Brahmā, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness,
Lord Brahma, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness,
was overwhelmed with joy within his heart.
was overwhelmed with joy within his heart,
And thus in full transcendental love and ecstasy,
and thus in full transcendental love and ecstasy,
his eyes filled with tears of love,
his eyes filled with tears of love.
he thus bowed down before the Lord.
He thus bowed down before the Lord.
That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being.
That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being.
Paramahaṁsa.
Paramahaṁsa.
Purport. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that this great literature is meant for the paramahaṁsas. Paramo nirmatsaranam satam. That is, the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for persons completely free from malice. In the conditioned life, the malicious life begins from the top, namely, bearing malice against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is an established fact in all the revealed scriptures, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the personal feature of the Supreme Lord is especially mentioned. So much so that the last portion of the great literature has emphatically stressed that one should surrender unto the personality of Godhead to be saved from the miseries of life. Unfortunately, persons with impious backgrounds do not believe in the personality of Godhead, and everyone wants to be God himself without any qualification. This malicious nature in the conditioned soul continues even up to the stage when a person wants to be one with the Lord. And thus, even the greatest of the empiric philosophers, speculating on becoming one with the Supreme Lord, cannot become a paramahaṁsa because the malicious mind is there. Therefore, the paramahaṁsa stage of life can be attained only by those who are fixed in the practice of bhakti yoga. This bhakti yoga begins if a person has the firm conviction that simply by discharging devotional service to the Lord in full transcendental love can elevate him to the highest perfectional stage of life. Brahmaji believed in this art of bhakti yoga. He believed in the instruction of the Lord to execute tapa, and he discharged the function with great penance and thus achieved the great success of seeing the Lord, Vaikuntha Lokas, and the Lord also by personal experience. No one can reach the abode of the Supreme Lord by any mechanical means of the mind or machine. But one can reach the abode of the Vaikuntha Lokas simply by following the process of Bhakti Yoga, because the Lord can be realized only through the Bhakti Yoga process. Lord Brahmaji was actually sitting on his lotus seat, and from there, by executing the process of Bhakti Yoga in great seriousness, he could see the Vaikuntha Lokas with all variegatedness, as well as the Lord in person and his associates. Following in the footsteps of Lord Brahmā, any person, even up to this day, can attain the same perfection by following the path of the paramahaṁsa as recommended herein. Lord Chaitanya also approved of this method of self-realization for men in this age. One should first, with all conviction, believe in the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and without making efforts to realize him by speculative philosophy, one should prefer to hear about him from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and later from the text of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One should hear such discourses from a person Bhagavatam and not from the professional man or from the karmi yogi, jnani or yogi. That is the secret of learning the science. One does not need to be in the renounced order of life. He can remain in his present condition of life, but must search out the association of a bona fide devotee of the Lord and hear from him the transcendental message of the Lord with faith and conviction. That is the path of the paramahaṁsa recommended herein. Among various holy names of the Lord, he is also called Ajita, or one who can never be conquered by anyone else. Yet, he can be conquered by the paramahaṁsa path as practically realized and shown by the great spiritual master, Lord Brahmā. Lord Brahmā has personally recommended this paramahaṁsa pantha in his own words as follows. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sammukharitam bhavati avatam stane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhi ye prayaso jita jito pyasi tais trilokyam. Lord Brahmā said, "O my Lord, a devotee who abandons the path of empiric philosophical speculation aimed at merging into the existence of the Supreme and engages himself in hearing your glories and activities from a bona fide sadhu or saint, and who lives an honest life in the occupational engagement of his social life, can conquer your sympathy and mercy, even though you are ajita or unconquerable. Bhagavatam 10:14-3. That is the path of the paramahamsas, which was personally followed by Lord Brahma and later recommended by him for attaining perfect success in life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakata Maikyam Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the blessings, permission and blessings of all devotees, and particularly those who may be advanced by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness, senior by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Lord Brahma, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart, and thus in full transcendental love and ecstasy, his eyes filled with tears of love. He thus bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection of the living being, paramahaṁsa. This verse, as you might be following, is at the beginning of creation. Lord Brahma was confused, bewildered about what his business was as he sat on his lotus seat as the only person within the universe. So he decided to find out where the origin of the lotus seat, of the stem of the lotus flower was. He went down that stem, and then the wind was too dangerous. So he began to climb up back, and he heard two syllables, tapa. How many times did he hear it?
Was it 3 times, Prabhu?
No, it
Forgot.
wasn't 3. It was twice.
Once. Twice?
No, twice.
Ah.
I don't know why it was twice. There's 2 syllables, ta and pa, and he heard it twice. So sometimes we say 3 times, Hare nanāma, Hare nanāma, Hare nanāma eva kevalam, 3 times because something has to sink in. But that might be for Kali Yuga people like us. But Lord Brahma, he heard it twice, and he took it as an instruction. And he sat and in meditation, he performed penance on the meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him. First, he showed him the Vaikuntha planets, and then the Personality of Godhead himself appeared before him to give his darshan, and that's what's mentioned here. Now, is this Personality of Godhead Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna?
That's a catch-22, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's like I wanted to catch you.
Is it Garbhodakshaya Vishnu?
Yes, that was my next.
No, it was Narayan in his forearm form, but yeah, Narayan in his forearm form. This described earlier.
It was Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, okay.
No, not Garbhodakshaya. Garbhodakshaya was the source of his lotus flower, but he was shown the Vaikuntha planets, and he saw all kinds of liberated living beings with their, ornaments, and then he also saw the four-armed Narayan, Vishnu, and then so this is very interesting. because in the Brahma Samhita, there's another description, slightly different description of Lord Brahma performing penance at the beginning of creation. And at that point, he has the darshan of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Lord Krishna plays his flute, and the flute enters to his 8 ear holes and comes out the Gayatri. And then Lord Brahma composes the Brahma Samhita, with each verse after that ending in Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So we see there's a slight difference between this description, where he sees the four-headed Narayan, and the description given in Brahma Samhita. Both scriptures are recommended and endorsed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he encouraged everyone to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and he called it the Amalam Puranam, or the Paramahaṁsa Samhita. And when he was in South India, he took trouble to have the Brahma Samhita copied, and he took a copy back to his devotees in Puri. So how can you justify these two different descriptions of Lord Brahma at the beginning of creation?
Prabhu, I don't know. I'm going to wait for your answer, Prabhu.
Oh, okay. Well, Lord Brahma creates every day. That's his job.
But Prabhu, he creates it in his time, though, right? I mean,
Yes, after
yes,
every day,
yes.
every day, after he sleeps, and then he wakes up and he creates again by the will of the Lord. So there may be some differences according to the particular creation. So he's creating every morning for him. So there might be some differences in the activities. In the Brahma Samhita version, he is meditating not just on Vaikuntha, but on Goloka, Sahasrapatram Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatpadam Tatkarnikaram Tadhama Taranatang Sangbavan. He's meditating on Goloka in that description. So anyway, so there could be differences in the different creations of Lord Brahma. But the important thing is, in each, he's surrendering and bowing down, like here, bowing down before the Lord and experiencing transcendental ecstasy in love of God. And this is the highest perfection of the living being, of a paramahaṁsa. So it's not just, he bows down before the Lord, and that is the internal meaning, the meaning of when we bow down to the Lord, whether it's halfway or fully, that we're surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead when we offer obeisances. Therefore, every time one goes into the temple room, or one leaves the temple room, it's recommended to, as far as possible, bow down. Even when Srila Prabhupada had his servants, like Srutakirti describes how when he would go in to see Srila Prabhupada, and when he would leave, he would bow down both times. Why? Just to help us remember our position as being a servant of the Supreme, or in this case, the spiritual master. So it's a good practice, bowing down as Lord Brahma is doing in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, his paramahaṁsa devotee. So then, what about this word paramahaṁsa? It's a very interesting word. Parama means topmost, and hamsa means swan. So you got a topmost swan, topmost swan. Why is a person following spiritual life called a topmost swan? That's a good question, right?
Prabhu, is it? I mean, I'm trying to figure out why topmost, but for the swan, they are able to separate water from what forgot what it was, but they're able to separate two substances. So, but why they're topmost? Is it because, Prabhu, they are able to separate good from bad, or like the two substances, or is that why they're called
Mentioned that
topmost?
there's a number of reasons, and that's one. You're called, yeah. That it said that the swan can separate milk from a mixture of milk and water. How they do that, I have no idea, but that's how it's said. And similarly, a paramahaṁsa in this world can take Krishna or the spiritual essence and leave the material. That's how it's described. Also, the same idea is there of yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya means sometimes Srila Prabhupada would be asked, well, you're driving around and your disciples picked you up in a fancy car. How is that spiritual? And Srila Prabhupada would say, do you know what spiritual is? What is your understanding of spiritual? Well, the point being that spiritual, everything is owned and controlled by the Lord, and its proper use is to be engaged in the Lord's service, and that's spiritual. Yukta vairagya. So how to use anything in Krishna service and leaving the material use behind and using it in the spiritual service or spiritualizing it, that's the business of the paramahaṁsa. You follow? When he actually does that.
Because also, Prabhu, I've heard, such comments about Prabhupada, and Prabhupada I think there was one pastime with, I think it was Upendra Prabhu, when the door was slamming and Prabhupada was getting irritated, and he said, who's slamming the door? Because Prabhupada could see that even though it's made out of wood, but he could see Krishna. And he was, I guess like he could see Krishna and everything. So even with this whole, coming in a fancy car, he was, or the dictaphone, like well, there's one comment about him using dictaphone, while you're using a material thing for, service. He said everything is Krishna's service, is how to use it in the Lord's service. And that's what he called Yukta Vairagya, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
Prabhu.
yes. The one about the slamming door was, my understanding is that he was identifying the inattention of devotees to slam.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so okay,
Yes.
so don't do that. It causes unnecessary disturbance. Yeah, but anyway, similar point. So this idea of a paramahaṁsa. Another take on paramahaṁsa is that in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the description of the Srimad Bhagavatam as a place for the swan-like devotees. And Srila Prabhupada comments that there's crow literature and swan literature. You remember this? Crow literature and swan. So he says that
Sure.
crows and swans are both birds, but they have a different mentality. Crows like to hang out in garbage dumps. Used to be, I don't know if it's still the case, when you on your way to New York City from this side, on the way there, just before you get to the Holland Tunnel, there's big mounds which are covered with grass now, but were the garbage dump for New York City. Just they would take the garbage from New York City and dump it in Jersey City, but they put dirt over them. But if you see thousands and thousands of crows there, because they're still after that garbage. How many swans did you see? 0. So even though they're both birds, they have a different mentality. So he said this crow literature and there's swan literature. There are different literatures for different mentalities. And actually, interesting point, and when he first came to Brooklyn Temple when I was there in 1971, he gave the Sunday Feast lecture. And he was a little strong with the people. He said that the Indians in this country are new crows. No offense meant. But he said that in this country, the young generation, they've understood that the material enjoyments and things, at least to a certain extent, they're giving them up. But now a new flock, a new batch of crows has come into that like that. Anyway, he was chiding Indian people at that time.
I've heard that same comment by Radhanath Swami too, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of his lectures.
So yeah, hopefully we won't be returning as crows or interested in crows, but one should aspire to become a paramahaṁsa. So in the Prema-bharāśru-locanaḥ, we say, Jai Om Vishnugada Paramahaṁsa Parivrajaka-acharya Ashtotarasata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. So that Jai Om Vishnugada at the feet of Vishnu, Paramahaṁsa. So we recognize Srila Prabhupada as a paramahaṁsa, one of those topmost swan-like devotees. Sometimes the paramahaṁsa descriptor is given as an honorific without someone actually being a paramahaṁsa, and they're given that title just out of emotion and things like that. But as we saw in this purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that paramahaṁsa is really only applicable to the pure devotees, those who have reached the pinnacle of bhakti yoga, like Lord Brahmā here. So that's someone who's understood Krishna fully as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and has dedicated their life and all their activities of mind, words, body in the service of Krishna in a joyful mood. On the other hand, there's 4 categories of sannyas. In the Vedic system, there's Varna, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and ashram. There's stages of life for persons when the purpose of these stages are to help one make advancement in spiritual life, to go back home, back to Godhead. So spiritual development isn't just stagnant, or at least if one follows these recommendations, it doesn't remain stagnant. So there's brahmachari, or in ISKCON there's brahmacharini, the student life, where there's a stricter, more one lives under the guidance of the guru and executes austerities, quite a bit of austerities, at least following the 4 relative principles and chanting 16 rounds, but also doing regular, daily, everyday service for the Supreme Lord through the directions of the spiritual master. Then after that, there's grihastha. One may get married, have children, etc. Then at a certain age, Prabhupada describes that around 50 years old, a person will retire and take vanaprastha, travel different holy places, hearing from devotees and sadhus, saints living there. And then the last stage is the sannyas stage, And even within the sannyas stage, there's different stages of sannyas. Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajaka and Paramahamsa. So Kutichak is the stage of sannyas. Person has left the family, left the wife, because in Vanaprast, the person travels to these holy places with the wife, although they don't involve in sexual activities. So the person leaves the family, leaves the wife, and stays in a little hut or cave or ashram outside this town, and people will bring him his food. And he's engaged in chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the next stage is Mahodak. He doesn't depend on people bringing him his food. He goes door to door and he begs. And he gets something a little bit, and he might cook that. And that gets him in the habit of not only begging alms, but being in a position to give spiritual direction to others by going door to door, not just for getting some rice or dal or atta, but so that they have a chance to enlighten other persons, and persons get the chance to be enlightened. Srila Prabhupada mentions that the difference between Indian culture and American culture is if you go to, there was one time when, at that time in India, there were only ambassador cars practically, a few Fiats, but mostly ambassador cars. And Srila Prabhupada would go on a morning walk. They'd take the car to Juhu Beach and park it and then walk and then come back to the car. So he was with Shyam Sundar Prabhu at the time. So they came back and got in the ambassador car, and it didn't start. It didn't start. There was Shyam Sundar couldn't understand what was going on. And then two Indian gentlemen got in on the back seat, and they were surprised. But apparently they had gotten in the wrong ambassador car. They all look alike. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that, if it was in the United States, we would be shot. But they were recognized, and they, not only that they gave him a ride back to the temple. Anyway, Bahudak means there's an open door policy. A mendicant comes to the door, well, give them something, hear about Krishna from them. But then the third stage, Parivrajak Acharya. Acharya, it means a person who teaches, and Parivrajak means they're going everywhere, not being dependent on one village or one family or one area or with their hut, but they're traveling widely and preaching everywhere about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotional service. And the final stage, paramahaṁsa, a person doesn't necessarily travel anymore, but simply involves in meditation and in samadhi and devotional service, thinking of Krishna, always engaging in Krishna service. They may preach or they may not preach. They may have a danda or they may not have a danda, but that's the final stage of the sannyas ashram. So that's another meaning of paramahaṁsa, that final stage. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur never officially took sannyas, but in the last stage of his life, for the last few years, he was like a Babaji and was doing this paramahaṁsa bhajan the last few years of his life. So in that sense, the paramahaṁsa could be the last stage of sannyas, or anyone who has reached that stage of full unalloyed devotional service without any taint, alloy of any other purpose, can also be addressed as a paramahaṁsa. A brahmachari can be a paramahaṁsa, a grihastha can be a paramahaṁsa, as long as they have that understanding and the full dedication to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even you or of course you can all become paramahamsas by getting the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his devotional service and through his great devotees. So the verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted later in the purport, Jnane prayasam, you know that's one down there? Jnane prayasam udapaspasya namanta eva. It's a very famous verse. This verse was spoken by Lord Brahmā after he stole the calves and cowherd boys and then got chastened when he saw that the cowherd boys and calves were still there, even though he had put them away in a cave. So he recognized the potency of that little tiny boy, Krishna, who was only 5 or so at the time, which was, difficult for him to wrap his 4 heads around. And then he said this prayer, that you can't understand Krishna. He said, it may be that the scientists, they'll be able to count the number of grains of sand on the beach or the number of atoms in the universe, but as far as the glories of Krishna, no, I'll never be able to understand all of them. No, not possible. So then he said this prayer. So the focus of this prayer is that one needs to make spiritual advancement. It's really essential that one regularly hear the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vaishnava scriptures from a person who is elevated in spiritual consciousness. Where do we find such a person?
The spiritual master.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada's writing it here. This is his writing. It's his demonstration of that principle. And this same verse was identified by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he went to South India, and he met there Ramananda Rai on the bank of the Godavari River. And he asked Ramananda Roy, he said, you please tell me, what is the goal of life and what's the method to attain it? So Ramananda Roy said, how can I'm technically a Shudra and a householder and a government man. He was a governor of the Madras area at that time. And then Lord Chaitanya said, oh, Kiva Bipra, Kibyanashi, Shudra Kenenoi, J. Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hoy. Anybody, doesn't matter what their background is. Vipra means Brahmin, Kiva Vipra, Kibin Nyasi means a sannyasi, Shudra or Shudra, doesn't matter. As long as they know the science of Krishna, they're the guru. So he accepted Ramananda Roy as guru to hear about the science of Krishna. So then Ramananda Roy began speaking about what he believed were the important steps for attaining the goal of life, loving service to Krishna. And he began by describing the Varnashram system, that one should follow the 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams in that way to engage in the service of Narayan. Lord Chaitanya said, no, that's external. And he went on. There he gave maybe 7 or 8 different recommendations, which were all not rejected, but not fully accepted by Lord Chaitanya. He said they were external. Even, he said, Yat Kuroshi Rajnashi Yat Johosi Dadasi Yat Yatapasyasi Kantaya Tat Kurushu Madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, as well as any austerity you perform, do it for me. Lord Chaitanya said, no, that's external. But then, when Ramananda Roy said this verse, Lord Chaitanya said, yes, this is, now go further. So I said he accepted this as the most important basis of spiritual advancement, hearing regularly from spiritual spiritual source. Stane stita. Stay in your position. Shrutigatam tanuvagmanobi. Hear it and hear. Hear those transcendental messages. And that way, Krishna, who's unconquerable, becomes conquerable. When the temple president was there in New York City in 1974, his name was Gopi Jana Vallabha Prabhu. I was there also. So Gopi Jana Vallabha Prabhu asked, at that time, we were doing, different Sankirtan arrangements. And the question arose, well, should devotees continue to, because at that time people would come from morning and evening classes and kirtans. Sometimes people would be sent out and they wouldn't come back for the evening class or the morning class or the kirtans. So Srila Prabhupada said, I go to the morning and evening classes, and he said he enjoys going to the morning and evening classes and hearing the kirtan of the devotees. So he advised, don't try to be a better paramahaṁsa than your spiritual master, he said. So he recommended hearing, like this verse is saying, morning and evening classes. And in fact, in the early, when Srila Prabhupada gives the first initiation, shortly after, he put up a letter that said all initiated devotees will attend morning and evening classes. Yeah. So that's the method of being a paramahaṁsa. Simple method. Regular hearing. And of course, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, minimum 16 rounds daily, like that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a wonderful class. Really, really nice to hear these little pastimes also for Prabhupada in the middle of the lectures. Thank you so much. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, please do raise your hand, or you can just jump right in and I will call upon you. Or you can put your question or comment in the chat and I'll be happy to read it. Prabhu, I was just thinking about the title, lack of a better word, that when we say Srila Prabhupada's, when we say the Prem-dani prayers and we say Parigrachari Paramahamsa, is it common, Prabhu, to have both the status? I mean, I've heard that, but you said there are 4 stages,
Yeah.
4, yes. So those 2 are, is it part of the next 2, or they just don't apply, or I'm just trying to understand, is it common to have 2 titles?
Paramahaṁsa Parivrajaka
Yes, as opposed to the other 2, which was.
Well, Srila Prabhupada sometimes assigned sannyasis, if you read letters, as Bahudak sannyasis.
Oh no, I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah. You can look in that at a certain part, but for Srila Prabhupada, they're identified as he's beyond that, and we say Paramahaṁsa first because sometimes they don't have to, but sometimes the Paramahaṁsas come to the Parivrajaka stage for preaching. You follow? That's why it's Jayam Vishnupad Paramahaṁsa first, then Parivrajaka. Yeah. So he's at the Paramahaṁsa stage, but he comes down from that stage to travel and preach by the arrangement and the order of his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Lord Chaitanya, even though he is a Paramahaṁsa. And Paramahaṁsas don't necessarily have to travel and preach. They may. There's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 13th chapter, there's a whole chapter on the activities and the behavior of people in the perfected stage or the paramahaṁsa stage of life, a whole chapter. And in the middle of the chapter, Narada Muni brings Prahlad Maharaj to a great saintly person who's living ajagara vidhi. He's living as a python, the python man. You might have heard of the python man. And he's just lying there and not traveling or preaching, but then he describes his mentality as he's an elevated, he's a paramahaṁsa. He's actually understanding everything is related to Krishna, and everything is Krishna service, but he's not preaching. But Prahlad Maharaj is astonished by this devotee who's doing that Ajagara Viti, or the Python man. So Paramahaṁsa and Parivrajaka both for that reason. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from devotees, please do ask. Prabhu, I have a question, and that yes, as we were reading this purport, and I'm trying to understand that here we have Lord Brahma, as it says in the purport, in the translation so nicely, that he was overwhelmed with joy, offering obeisances to the Lord, and with eyes filled with tears, and then bowing before the Lord, which is the way of the highest perfection. And then towards the end of the purport, we see that that is the path of the paramahaṁsas, which was personally followed by Lord Brahma and later recommended by him for attaining perfect success in life. Where in the stage, Prabhu, because we know this pastime of Lord Brahma running after his daughter. So where in the stage did that event happen, or is it part of the growing process of Lord Brahma attaining perfection in life?
You mean temporary? What time
When
did
he
that happen?
went off tangent.
Yeah, it's a good question. My understanding is it before, and this happened later. That's my understanding. Of course, there's different, as we mentioned, there's different creations. So that was one of the creations before. Yeah. Many creations.
Got it. Thank you, Prabhu. Clears my doubt.
And not
Thank you.
not only that, there were some sons of Marichi who criticized him. Isn't it? Remember?
I heard that too.
They later became sons of Kalanemi, and then the six sons of Devaki that were killed by Kamsa as a result of their criticism. Even though it was correct that he shouldn't run after his daughter, still, because they unnecessarily criticized him more than, they weren't seen as well. Good. So we got to be careful not to criticize demigods, too much. We can criticize them the way Srila Prabhupada criticized, well, I don't know if you say criticized, but he pointed out that Indra became puffed up, and therefore he wanted to not only punish, but destroy Krishna and the cowherd people and the cows. All right, that was because it was puffed up. But be careful. We better be careful. I should be careful about going further than criticizing. Like, it makes sense? Okay. Sarvanga Shunga,
Yes.
Prabhu.
Yes. Damodar, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All
Yes.
glories to Prabhupada. All glories to the devotees on the call. Prabhu, towards the end, you were quoting Srila Prabhupada that initiated devotees should hear morning and evening classes. Of course, we are in our temple, we don't have the evening classes right now. But regarding morning classes, sometimes it happens to me that I am not in the mood to hear the morning class. I feel like I want to hear something else. I have time. It's not like I don't have time, but I want to hear something else that I just saw on YouTube. And it might not be just me. It may be some other people might also be feeling the same thing, that, oh no, today I don't want to hear the morning Bhagavatam class. I want to hear something else. So in that respect, what are your recommendations? What have you heard? Any comments from senior devotees, sannyasis, Prabhupada disciples, like that? So
Well, it depends on what else you're listening to. Depends on what that other else is. Usually, Srila Prabhupada spoke in the morning and recommended the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, but it wasn't always. Sometimes he spoke on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and sometimes early he spoke on Brahma Samhita. But Vedic literature for sure, and usually Srimad Bhagavatam, but that doesn't have to be. And So what other, I mean, there could be other some transcendental messages, certainly, mostly Srimad Bhagavatam, but other transcendental messages are certainly from time to time okay, no problem. I wouldn't have any problem with that, I don't think. What do you
How
think?
about Prabhupada Lilamrit classes or something like that?
Yeah. Well, you know, I would be careful. Srila Prabhupada set up the system of morning Srimad Bhagavatam and evening Bhagavad Gita. So, and I know that you have classes here in the morning. You can also, I mean, the classes here, I mean, Zoom classes, right? The Zoom became very popular after during the pandemic, but one can have Zoom classes, 50 Zoom classes. But the standard was Srimad Bhagavatam and then Bhagavad Gita in the night. And also, there's Krishna book, the Krishna book also in the evening time after later. That's also there. But some Krishna conscious stuff is especially recommended, because if we don't hear enough, then we get off track. But you'd have to say exactly what it is. If it's someone is giving a talk on whatever it might be, a spiritual subject, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I mean, in Philadelphia for like 30 years, 20 or 25 years, every Thursday we used to read the Lilamrita, and we still do every Thursday, just because I only want to do it once a week, because Srila Prabhupada established the Bhagavad Gita in the evening time. I know that, but sometimes we lose the current generation hasn't had the opportunity to hear about Srila Prabhupada and his activities, which are as good as transcendental. But so I made the rash decision to once a week on Thursday to read Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And one interesting thing also is some of the times, Srila Prabhupada would say twice a day, congregational reading. Oh, congregational reading, we're reading together. And congregational reading, if this is, Kartik, when Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in 1972, he did a month-long series of classes on the nectar devotion in the evening, and how he had Pradyumna read, and then he would comment, or others sometimes would comment. So that my understanding is that's congregational reading. He would have Pradyumna read, and he would comment, and sometimes other people would comment or ask questions as they're going along. So that's also, so that was nectar devotion in the evening time. Doesn't have to be. I don't know if that's helpful at all. What do you
Thank
think?
you. That helps and that clears the doubt. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I have a question. Is during Sri Prabhupada's time when they had the evening, of course, at that time he was in person. What time in the evenings was it always the right time, Prabhu, that Sri Prabhupada used to have the evening reading sessions?
After RT.
Got it. Okay.
So I mean, most of the time, most of the time, it was the regular other devotees. I mean, a few times, I mean, Srila Prabhupada used to come through New York once a year, but that'd be Arti. And then after Arti, he would speak on Bhagavad Gita, usually, not always, usually. And then, but when Srila Prabhupada wasn't there, he devotees would give Bhagavad Gita class after Arti,
Okay.
evening Arti. No, Sandhya
Thank you.
Arti, not
Sandhya.
Sundara, it was Sandhya Arti.
Sandhya. Got it.
That was usually was 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, sometimes, not always, sometimes there'd be hot milk afterwards.
Yes.
And then somebody would read, or sometimes read the Krishna book at that time. Krishna book reading is also exciting. So.
Yes. In fact, when you're speaking about hot milk, Prabhu, I was remembering, I don't know if Parikshit remembers, I think he's online. When we moved to Gitanagari and we would, before we started working, we would go for the morning in the after in the evening, And I remember Muktavanya. I don't know if you remember him, Prabhu.
I know him.
Prabhupada, yeah, he would do I think he was reading Krishna book of Bhagavad Gita, and we would sit in a circle, and that would be hot milk and those stainless steel buckets, that 3-gallon buckets.
Yes.
And we would just have hot milk and we would just read. It was really sweet. It was really sweet at those times.
Yeah, so the point is hearing transcendental messages. Prabhupada set up Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, but other things are certainly doable.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Do jump right in, or you can put it right in the chat if you can't. And I don't see anything to chat. And oh yeah, I forgot the time. I'm just enjoying this discussion.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna,
so much,
Mataji.
Prabhu. Vanchakraptivyascha, Kripasindabevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.